Hello, everyone. There is a Social Security benefit valued at as much as $1,500 every month that a substantial number of American retirees are simply not collecting right now. Not because their application was turned down, not because they fall outside the eligibility requirements, but because they either had no idea they needed to apply, believed they wouldn't qualify, or made one particular decision at the time they signed up that permanently left a larger benefit sitting unclaimed. $1,500 every month, $18,000 every year, on top of whatever Social Security payment you are already collecting. And the seniors who are missing out on this money are not in unusual or complicated circumstances. They are widows and widowers. They are people who went through a divorce. They are married couples who coordinated their benefits without ever actually running the numbers for their household. And they are individuals who started collecting at the wrong moment because they misunderstood how the benefit system genuinely functions. My name is Linda Foster. I have worked for 12 years as a certified retirement planner, and this particular conversation produces the most immediate and meaningful financial improvement for the people I work alongside. Let me take you through exactly where that $1,500 originates and what steps you need to take to find out whether any portion of it belongs to you. The uncollected benefit comes from 3 distinct Social Security entitlements that are consistently underused by the people who qualify for them: survivor benefits, divorced spouse benefits, and the spousal coordination approach that the majority of married couples have never properly optimized. Let me begin with the one that touches the greatest number of people and carries the largest potential dollar value: survivor benefits for widows and widowers. When a spouse passes away, the surviving partner is entitled to receive whichever of the 2 spouses' monthly Social Security payments is larger. If the deceased spouse had been collecting more than the surviving spouse, the survivor's monthly payment is supposed to increase to match what the deceased was receiving. That is the survivor benefit. The critical piece of information that most people are completely unaware of is that this adjustment does not always happen on its own. If you were already receiving your own Social Security payment when your spouse died, the Social Security Administration may not have automatically updated your payment to reflect the higher survivor amount. You are required to contact the SSA and either apply for or formally confirm the survivor benefit. Countless widows and widowers are sitting there collecting their own lower payment months or even years after their spouse's death, simply because no one ever informed them that a phone call was necessary. Their payment has not been adjusted. The SSA has not reached out to correct it. And the gap between what they are currently receiving and the survivor benefit they are fully entitled to is being forfeited every single month. The maximum survivor benefit in 2026 is $5,181 per month for a surviving spouse whose late partner was a maximum earner and delayed claiming until age 70. For someone whose late spouse had a full retirement age benefit of $3,000 and also delayed to 70, the survivor benefit works out to $3,720 per month. If the surviving spouse is currently receiving $1,200 per month based on their own earnings record, the gap amounts to $2,520 every month, $30,240 lost every single year. The action step if you are a widow or widower currently collecting your own Social Security benefit is to call the SSA at 1-800-077-21213 and ask 2 very specific questions. First, am I currently receiving my own retirement benefit or a survivor benefit? Second, is my late spouse's benefit on file, and would transferring to the survivor benefit result in a higher monthly payment? If the SSA confirms that your late spouse's benefit was greater than what you are currently receiving, and the survivor benefit was never applied, you may be eligible to receive the higher amount going forward, and in certain cases, a limited amount of retroactive payment as well. Divorced spouse and divorced survivor benefits. If your marriage lasted at least 10 years and you have since divorced, you are entitled to a benefit calculated from your former spouse's Social Security record. While your former spouse is still living, this divorced spouse benefit can be as much as 50% of their primary insurance amount. When your former spouse dies, it increases to 100% of what they were receiving, and this is referred to as the divorced survivor benefit. Your former spouse does not need to be informed that you are making this claim. Your application does not reduce their benefit in any way, nor does it affect the benefit of any current spouse they may have. The only conditions are that the marriage lasted at least 10 years, you are not currently remarried, and your own benefit amount is lower than the divorced spouse benefit would be. Many divorced seniors operate under the false assumption that their entitlement ended the moment the marriage did, or that claiming on a former spouse's record is somehow inappropriate or unfair. Neither of those beliefs is accurate. The divorced spouse benefit is a legitimately earned entitlement. It exists specifically because Social Security acknowledges the economic partnership that develops within a marriage and the contribution that a lower earning or non-working spouse makes to the household, even when that contribution never shows up on a W-2. For a divorced woman whose own benefit is $700 per month and whose former husband's primary insurance amount is $2,800, the divorced spouse benefit would be $1,400 per month. The monthly difference is $700. Over 20 years of retirement, that difference totals $168,000. To find out whether the divorced spouse benefit applies to your situation, call the SSA at 1-800-77-21213. Have your former spouse's name, their approximate birth date, and their Social Security number available if you have it. If you do not have their Social Security number, the SSA can frequently locate the record using just a full name and date of birth. The spousal coordination strategy that most married couples have never properly optimized. For married couples where neither spouse has claimed yet, or where one has claimed and the other has not, the sequence and timing of claiming decisions creates a permanent difference in total household income over a lifetime. A difference that most couples have never actually sat down to calculate. The core principle is that the higher earner's claiming decision determines what the surviving spouse will receive for the remainder of their life. Whatever amount the higher earner locks in at the age they claim becomes the survivor benefit paid to the remaining spouse after the higher earner passes away. If the higher earner claimed at 62 and accepted a 30% reduction, the surviving spouse receives that reduced amount for potentially decades afterward. If the higher earner waited until 70 and accumulated a 24% increase, the surviving spouse receives the larger amount instead. The difference between a higher earner claiming at 62 versus 70 represents $2,212 per month at maximum benefit levels. For a more typical higher earner with a full retirement age, benefit of $2,800, the difference between claiming at 62 and claiming at 70 is $1,264 monthly. Across 15 years of survivor benefit receipt, that difference accumulates to $227,520. Most married couples have never sat down together with both spouses' benefit estimates at various claiming ages and worked through the household income implications of different timing sequences. Many have simply begun collecting when they felt the time was right or when financial pressure made it necessary, never realizing that the higher earner's decision is the single most financially significant Social Security choice the entire household will ever make. The action step in this situation is to log in to ssa.gov and access the My Social Security portal for both spouses. Write down the estimated benefit amounts at 62, at full retirement age, and at 70 for each spouse, then work through what the household would collect under various claiming scenarios. The specific sequence that produces the greatest lifetime household income depends on the difference between each spouse's benefit amounts, the age gap between them, health considerations, and whatever other income sources would be available during any gap period. Now let me go further into the survivor benefit specifically, because this is where the largest dollar amounts are found and where the greatest number of people are leaving money behind. The survivor benefit operates under a distinct set of rules that differ from the spousal benefit available when both spouses are still living. Survivor benefits can begin as early as age 60, compared to 62 for most other Social Security benefit types. If you are a widow or widower between 60 and full retirement age and have not yet claimed any Social Security benefit, you have the option to begin collecting a reduced survivor benefit starting at 60. The survivor benefit also offers a unique two-step opportunity that is not available to married couples where both spouses are living. A widow or widower can begin collecting the survivor benefit first and then switch to their own retirement benefit later, or they can claim their own benefit first and then transition to the survivor benefit at a later point. The best sequence depends entirely on which benefit will ultimately be larger and at what age that advantage takes effect. For a widow whose own retirement benefit at 70 with full delayed credits would exceed the survivor benefit at full retirement age, claiming the reduced survivor benefit at 62 generates immediate income, while her own benefit continues growing. At 70, she switches over to her own larger benefit. This approach produces more total lifetime income than any single claiming strategy could. For a widow whose survivor benefit at full retirement age is substantially larger than her own retirement benefit will ever be, claiming her own reduced benefit at 62 and then switching to the complete survivor benefit at her survivor full retirement age produces the best result. Running through both scenarios requires knowing the survivor benefit amount at full retirement age and your own retirement benefit at 62, full retirement age, and 70. The SSA can give you the survivor benefit figure when you call. Your own estimates are accessible at ssa.gov. I also want to speak to people who are approaching age 60 and who are widowed but have not yet begun any Social Security benefit at all. You may have the ability to start the survivor benefit at 60 rather than waiting until 62 when other benefit types first become available. If your late spouse's benefit was considerably higher than your own will be, beginning the survivor benefit at 60 can provide meaningful monthly income during a period when other options are genuinely limited. However, starting before your survivor full retirement age does result in a reduced survivor benefit. So the comparison between accepting a smaller amount now versus waiting for a larger amount later is absolutely worth working through carefully. Let me close this portion with the specific action steps for this video. If you are a widow or widower currently receiving your own Social Security benefit, call 1-800-77-21213 and ask whether you are collecting your own retirement benefit or a survivor benefit, and whether switching to the survivor benefit would result in a higher monthly payment. If you were married for 10 years or longer and are now divorced, call the SSA and ask about the divorced spouse benefit or the divorced survivor benefit based on your former spouse's record. Provide your former spouse's name and date of birth. If you are married and neither of you has claimed yet, or if only one spouse has claimed, work through the household income projections at different claiming ages at ssa.gov and determine the sequence that maximizes both your combined lifetime income and the eventual survivor income. The benefit has existed all along. What has been missing is the knowledge of how to access it. Please send this video to one widow, one divorced senior, or one married couple who is approaching their Social Security claiming decision and has never had this specific conversation before. I will see you in the next one. Let me go deeper into each of the 3 benefit situations, because the practical details genuinely matter when it comes to successfully claiming what you are owed. On the subject of survivor benefits, I want to cover the specific documentation you will need when you call the SSA to apply or confirm your entitlement. When you call about a survivor benefit, the SSA will typically ask for your Social Security number, your late spouse's Social Security number if you have it, the date of your marriage, the date your spouse passed away, and your current bank account details for direct deposit purposes. If you do not have your late spouse's Social Security number, the SSA can generally locate the record using their full legal name, date of birth, and the approximate state where they lived during their working years. You will also typically be required to provide supporting documents. A death certificate is the primary one. A marriage certificate confirms the legal marriage relationship. If your marriage was a common law arrangement, some states recognize these unions, and you may need additional documentation to establish the relationship. The SSA processes survivor benefit applications over the phone and does not require you to submit anything online. The representative will walk you through exactly what to mail in or bring to a local office. One important note about timing. Survivor benefits cannot be claimed retroactively beyond a limited window. If your spouse passed away several months ago and you have not yet applied, calling right away prevents additional months of missed survivor payments from slipping away. The SSA typically permits retroactive survivor benefit payments, going back up to 6 months, under certain circumstances. But this is not a guarantee and depends on when and why the application was delayed. On the subject of divorced spouse and divorced survivor benefits, I want to address the 10-year marriage requirement more precisely because there are situations where people genuinely are not sure whether the length of their marriage qualifies. The 10-year requirement is measured from the date the marriage was legally formalized to the date the divorce was finalized, not from the beginning of any relationship that may have preceded the formal marriage. If you lived with someone for 15 years but were only legally married for 8 years before the divorce was completed, the 8 years of legal marriage is the figure that counts. If the legal marriage lasted 10 years or longer, the entitlement exists regardless of how long the relationship was before the wedding. Multiple marriages are each evaluated separately. If you were married to one person for 12 years and divorced, and then married a second person for 8 years and divorced, you may be entitled to benefits based on the first marriage because it met the 10-year threshold. The second marriage would not qualify because it fell short of 10 years. If both marriages met the 10-year threshold and both former spouses are still living, you are entitled to the higher of your own benefit, or the divorced spouse benefit, on whichever former spouse's record produces the larger payment. You cannot collect divorced spouse benefits from 2 different records at the same time, but you are entitled to receive the highest available amount from among your options. For divorced seniors who are unsure about the duration of a past marriage or who had several marriages throughout their lives, the SSA can assist in determining eligibility when you call. Providing the names, dates of birth, and approximate years of each marriage gives the representative enough information to assess which records may generate an entitlement for you. On the subject of the spousal coordination strategy, I want to address the specific situation faced by couples where there is a meaningful age difference between spouses, because that gap directly affects which claiming sequence is optimal. For couples where there is a significant age difference, the younger spouse will generally outlive the older spouse by a number of years. The survivor benefit paid from the older spouse's record will therefore be in payment for a longer stretch of time than would be typical. This makes the older spouse's claiming decision even more consequential than it would be for couples who are close in age. Consider a couple where the husband is 68 and the wife is 60. The husband has a full retirement age benefit of $3,000. The wife has a full retirement age benefit of $900. If the husband begins collecting now at 68, his benefit would be approximately $3,320, reflecting 2 years of delayed credits beyond his full retirement age of 67. The wife will eventually receive that same amount as her survivor benefit. If the husband waits until 70 to claim, his benefit grows to $3,720. The wife's eventual survivor benefit is $400 per month higher as a result. If the wife outlives the husband by 20 years, the cumulative impact of the husband delaying just 2 additional years amounts to $96,000 in additional lifetime survivor income. The 2 years of the husband's own benefit between ages 68 and 70 that were not collected represent a foregone amount of approximately $79,680. But the 20-year additional survivor benefit of $96,000 more than compensates for that temporary gap. The husband's decision to delay from 68 to 70 produces a net gain of approximately $16,000 in total household lifetime Social Security income. This is precisely the kind of calculation that most couples have never performed, and performing it genuinely changes the claiming decision for a large number of them. I also want to address the earnings limit that affects survivor benefits for widows and widowers who are still in the workforce and have not yet reached their full retirement age. In 2026, the earnings threshold for Social Security recipients below full retirement age is $24,480 annually. For every $2 earned above that threshold, $1 of Social Security benefit is withheld. This rule applies to survivor benefits in exactly the same way it applies to standard retirement benefits. A widow who is 63 years old and earning $40,000 per year would have her survivor benefit reduced by approximately $7,760 annually due to this earnings test. If her survivor benefit is $2,000 per month, the withheld amount reduces her net annual survivor income from $24,000 down to approximately $16,240. Waiting until full retirement age to begin collecting the survivor benefit eliminates the earnings test entirely. If you are still working and your income substantially exceeds the annual threshold, postponing the survivor benefit claim until you reach full retirement age may result in greater total survivor income over time, even accounting for the period of delay. Let me also address how the survivor benefit interacts with Medicare? Because this question comes up regularly among widows and widowers who are approaching Medicare eligibility age. Medicare eligibility begins at 65, regardless of whether you are receiving any Social Security payment. You do not need to be collecting a survivor benefit in order to enroll in Medicare. Conversely, enrolling in Medicare does not mean you must simultaneously begin your survivor benefit. For a widow who is 64 and approaching Medicare eligibility, enrolling in Medicare at 65 is a completely separate decision from anything related to the survivor benefit. She can enroll in Medicare at 65 and continue deferring the survivor benefit until her survivor full retirement age in order to receive the maximum possible monthly amount. The Medicare Part B premium will be billed to her directly if she is not yet receiving Social Security, rather than being deducted automatically from a Social Security payment. But that is simply a billing arrangement, not a matter of benefit eligibility. Recognizing that these are two independent decisions with entirely separate timelines allows for better planning of both. One final point I want to make about all three of these uncollected benefits. The Social Security Administration is not working against you. They are not concealing these benefits intentionally. They are managing an extraordinarily complex system with a limited workforce and millions of people to serve. When you call and ask clearly and specifically whether a survivor benefit, a divorced spouse benefit, or a spousal coordination opportunity applies to your particular circumstances, the representative on the other end of the line will help you understand your full range of options. The phone call takes between 15 and 30 minutes. The information you walk away with could change your monthly income by hundreds or even thousands of dollars on a permanent basis. The only thing standing between you and that information has been not knowing that the call needed to be made. I will see you in the next one.